Welcome to Orchard Beach State Park. Orchard Beach State Park is located just north of the town of Manistee. It's on the west coast of Michigan, right along Lake Michigan. And in fact, there's even a trolley here that will take you into town to Manistee because it's another one of those cute little coastal communities with shops, a cute little drawbridge, and my favorite, the House of Flavors ice cream shop. The land that Orchard Beach State Park sits on has had quite a bit of history involved with it. It started off as just a forest, and then the Native Americans moved in for a while. And then, as we've seen in other parts of Michigan, the lumber barons came through, wiped out the entire forest, pretty much wiped out Michigan, in fact. So cleared the land in that way. And then a family came in, and after the lumber had run out, and they built an orchard here. So that's sort of where the Orchard Beach name came in, because there was an apple orchard right next to the beach.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. They built this orchard right along Lake Michigan. Yeah. So it was really different. And then I think it was 1921, the state acquired the land where the orchard was. And something I thought was really interesting when they opened the state park and put the campground in, the original campsites were actually scattered among the apple trees. So you were camping camping in the orchard, which is kind of neat. Since then, the orchard trees have been replaced, and now we have more standard Michigan fare for trees that are in the campground.
I have a feeling the campers probably didn't like the apples dropping on their trailers all the time.
Yeah, that could be really bad. These days, especially people with slides, you don't want apples coming down and landing on top of your slide. But the campground is still very wooded. It's actually more wooded now than it was when it was an orchard. So there's a lot of good-sized trees here. There's a lot of shade within the campground. So it's really nice. It looks really nice. There's a couple of things about the campground, though. One is most of the spots require some sort of leveling. This whole place is kind of a slope toward the water. But then it also slopes in either direction. But
it does seem mostly on one slant, but it's all grass. So you're going to have just some natural elevation issues to deal with between the grass, the roots of the trees, any ground animals that have burrowed under. So yeah, just make sure you have your leveling blocks for sure.
Yeah, some way to level. The other thing too is that you are pretty much right on top of your neighbors here. I mean, they've got a lot of campsites packed into this area, and it depends on how your setup is run, I suppose. Now, the outer loop along the trees, you have a little more privacy because you have trees behind you.
Right. But the inner loop, you're backed up to each other. Your slide, your truck, if you have more than one vehicle on your site, you're going to be right next to your neighbor's tent. That is probably the one complaint that I've heard most from people here, is that if you are in a tent here, it's going to be a little bit noisier than most, just because you're so close to everybody else, that doors slamming, kids on their bikes, dogs barking, you name it, you're going to hear it.
Well, and yeah, it's mostly just because once you're set up and then your neighbor is set up, especially if you're in a tent, you're basically right next to somebody's RV, or you're next to their truck that they hauled it in with. There's really no getting away from that. I mean, people seem to like this place. It's pretty busy. And it's a beautiful view when you get out, and overlook the cliff here. There's no beach really anymore at Orchard Beach. But there's no orchard and there's no beach at Orchard Beach. I
realized that. That's really sad.
I just made that connection. But there's I
did see an apple tree in the day use area. I remember I was going to comment on that. There was an apple tree in the orchard area, in the day use area.
That's a good segue too into the day use area. There is a small day use area here. It's not small, but it's it's good size, I guess. It's smaller than some places that we've been to, but it's picnic tables. There's grills. There's a swing set for the kids. There's some different grassy areas for people to hang out in.
Oh, there's a full-size sand volleyball court though, and I don't think I've seen that. Maybe only a handful of other couple places. I think there's a couple horseshoe pits as well.
So there's plenty of room to spread out here in terms of doing that kind of thing. And like we said, there's the cliff that you overlook, the Lake Michigan here.
It's a gorgeous, gorgeous view. Absolutely gorgeous view of Lake Michigan from up here. It's nice seeing that elevation, because most of the other beaches that we've been to along Lake Michigan, you're down at the water level. So being up here on the cliff overlooking it, you have a great view of the sailboats and the freighters going by. I mean, I have to imagine the sunsets up here are absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, and if you're interested in it at all, periodically you'll see the Coast Guard fly over with their helicopters, and you will hear them before you see them. But it's pretty cool to see those guys when they're out on patrol and taking care of the coast here on Lake Michigan. We are standing at the cliff at the edge of Orchard Beach State Park. The cliff right where we're at used to be a set of stairs down to the beach.
Yeah, I think hence the Orchard Beach part of the name, except for the fact that there's no beach anymore. Combination of things. Unlike other parks along the Lake Michigan shoreline, which are mostly of the sand dune type, this one is not. It's more of a glacial deposit with clay and rock and limestone. And so it has taken a beating over the years from the waves of Lake Michigan, and to the point where the erosion has just gotten so bad that it is essentially a sheer cliff face from the park to the water. So yeah, unfortunately the high water this year isn't helping, but actually this stairway has been closed for a couple of years due to that erosion issue.
Yeah, there's always been sort of a cliff here as it's eroded over the centuries, right?
Yeah.
But they used to have a beach, and then at one point they ended up putting these stairs in to help people get to and from the beach a little bit easier. And then the erosion kind of took out the stairs, and the whole thing just isn't safe anymore. And now you just have sort of a nice fence that they're replacing and a beautiful view of Lake Michigan, but you can't really get down to the water anymore.
No, unfortunately, but because we're right by Manistee, if you do want to go to the beach, there's a nice public beach in Manistee. So it's not too far away, a few miles at most. I mean, you do have to drive there, but at least there is still a beach in the area you can go to.
And there is a nice little trail along like the campground and the day use area and all the way through the park that takes you all the way along the fence line. So it's actually kind of a nice little stroll along the lake, and you see some nice views when the trees break open and you can see out over the cliff. So it's a cool place to see. It's just not quite what was here when they originally built it.
As we've seen at other state parks, the CCC was critical to the development of many of the amenities of the park system. Here behind me is the shelter building, and it was built in the 40s, again by the CCC. And today it's reservable for family reunions, weddings, picnics, or any other type of gathering. What's kind of an interesting fact about it is that the entire stone that it's made out of was shipped across Lake Michigan from Wisconsin to get here. So probably actually wasn't that far, but it did come from across the lake. But it's a really cool. It's got 2 big fireplaces, picnic tables, sides that roll up and down. That those look like they're newer. They've been added. So if you're having an event and the weather turns bad, you can kind of enclose yourself a little bit. But I think this would be a really kind of pretty place to get married. If you don't have your own rig, or you don't want to be packed in like sardines with everybody in the campground area, they do have 2 cabins to rent here. One is a larger camper cabin for 6 people, and it's got some different amenities in it. And then one is a smaller cabin that sleeps 4 people.
If you do want to camp, there are 160 campsites in about 200 acres of land total.
Yeah.
And some of them are now 50 amp. So part of this park has been upgraded. Across the road from the state park campground area and day use area, there's a trail system.
Right. There's a 30-minute self-guided nature trail as well as a 2-mile loop in addition that is popular both in the summer, but actually a lot of people come here and cross-country ski that in the winter. The campground is not open in the winter. I don't believe it is anyway, but the day use area and the trails would be available as well as the view of Lake Michigan.
That would be kind of neat to see, the lake. It would be cold, but if you were prepared for it, it would be kind of pretty.
I love Lake Michigan in the winter, though. I think it's when the ice freezes and you get the lake, the wave buildup. I think everybody should visit Lake Michigan in the winter.
It can be pretty. It's like 75 degrees, blue skies, and sunny right now, so I prefer Lake Michigan today. But we can come back in the winter if you want.
Why not?
Whether you like traveling in the winter or hanging out in beautiful summer sun, keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there. Ice cream! This is really good. It's the Tennessee toffee, bourbon sauce, and some like caramel mixed in with it. Highly recommend this flavor.